Hi guys, we're back with vlog number 19. I'm sure it's vlog number 19 because I just checked. On the last vlog I didn't know what number we were at. Yes, so Tasha's with us temporarily, probably. She doesn't seem to be in the mood for cooperating with us today. I don't quite know what's getting into her, but here she is. She's been chasing after me mum's packet of crisps, so that might be the problem. Anyway, it is the week after Easter. We just had Easter weekend gone, so I hope you had a great weekend, whatever you did, whatever you make of Easter, whether it be the religious side of it or whether it just be chocolate. I hope you enjoyed it and it was everything you'd hoped it would be. I unfortunately had a migraine on Easter Sunday, so that kind of spoiled it for me. You don't really want to eat chocolate eggs when you've had a migraine. And anyway, that set me off thinking as to why I haven't actually talked about migraine during these vlogs, because it's been a huge part of my life, migraine. And I think the reason I haven't talked about it is probably because it would likely turn into a rant video, and I really don't like doing rant videos. That's not the avenue I want to go down. If you've watched previous videos, you'll probably get that. I like to put a positive angle on things and put out some positivity and maybe a bit of advice, and I don't think that would really happen if I did talk about migraine, but tough, because I want to talk about migraine, and I will try to make sure it doesn't turn into a rant and try to be a bit more educational and help people to understand, people who don't suffer from migraine, the truth about migraine, and maybe reduce some of the prejudice, because I have suffered a lot of prejudice about migraine. I'm sure a lot of people have, and yeah, I'll do my best not to get all angry, but I likely will get a bit angry because it's a subject that's made me want to level out quite a few people, including friends of mine, because it's very misunderstood. Mostly because it's called migraine headache, and anybody who suffers from migraine will know it is not a headache. It's not a headache to suffer from, and it's not medically really a headache, because headaches in general that most people suffer from are about the muscles and muscle tension in your head or the back of your neck, but migraine is got nothing to do with the muscles. It's about blood vessels. I wrote it down actually to make sure I got it right. I don't want to give you wrong information. Blood vessels that enlarge and release chemicals from the nerves around the blood vessels. So the blood vessels enlarge and chemicals around those blood vessels are released. And also the temporal artery, which is just underneath the skin but on the outside of the skull, release a chemical as well. And that is what causes the pain. But the vessels enlarge and cause the other symptoms of migraine. And yes, there are other symptoms of migraine. It's not just a headache. And I'm not going to say headache because it's not an ache. I know what a headache's like. Migraine is pain. It's not a head ache, it's a head pain. It's severe pain. So like I've said, it's about blood vessels and arteries and chemicals. It is not about muscular pain. It can be caused by some of the same things that cause regular headaches, like stress, but it isn't a headache. I'm saying, still working on it, still working on the So yeah, it's a completely different thing. The pain is excruciating. I had my first migraine that I can remember when I was 6 years old. I may have had them before then, but that's certainly the first one I remember. I was on holiday with my mum. We were at a hotel and it started on the evening. It started as a headache and then changed into pain. Excruciating pain. I can remember now my mum going out of the hotel on the evening to try and find some painkillers for me to take because I was in so much pain, and I can still remember it now. And it was frightening, being in that amount of pain at that age, not understanding what was going on, and it was frightening. And I remember she gave me the painkillers and she went off to have dinner in the big dinner hall that you have in hotels, and I was alone in the hotel room and I was so frightened. And I remember getting up and I remember crawling across the dining room floor till I found my mum's table and I sat underneath a chair. She can still remember it. She sat over there. She remembers that. And I remember sitting at a chair because I didn't want to be on my own. But I was in agony, and I think I was sick too. I think I remember being sick. And that's common with migraine, is vomiting. But they were the only two symptoms I had at that time, was the pain, excruciating pain that no 6-year-old child should have to suffer. Believe me, it's pain, and vomiting. And I carried on from that point having terrible headaches that made me vomit. But it wasn't until I was around 10, 11 years old that I had the classic migraine symptoms that went with the pain and the vomiting, and I got light disturbances, which were like flashing lights jumping around. Do you get them with regular headaches? I'm not sure that you do. I couldn't see properly. Little zigzag lights that start as a little dot here and the spread. Now, not everybody who suffers from migraine gets those. It's called the aura, and it's usually the beginning, the warning signs of what's to come. But some people get them, and I certainly did from that age. After I had that first lot, every time I got a migraine from them on, I always got the flashing lights, and I still get them. There's little flashing lights. Now, you can imagine being 10 years old and seeing something like that. I was terrified, and I didn't know what it was. My mum didn't know what it was, but I kept saying I could see this thing, and she couldn't see it. Flashing lights, and then the head pain started, and I started to vomit, and then I got very, very confused, and I couldn't remember words. I was laid on the sofa, and I was trying to tell my mum to pull a chair over to sit near me, because you were very frightening. And I went to stay near me, and I couldn't remember the word for chair. I just kept pointing at the chair and telling it, going like this, like, I couldn't remember the words to tell her to bring the chair over. You just lose sentences, you lose words. I couldn't even remember my own name at some points. And that was my last year in junior school, and then I went up into the comprehensive school, and I remember having one in comprehensive school where I was so sick. They sent me to the matron, who had no idea what to do with me because she deals with cuts and bruises, and there I was, rambling on, not making any sense because I couldn't string a sentence together, vomiting all over the matron's office, in agony with my head, and I didn't know what to do. They called my mum, and my mum came up to the school to collect me, and I just looked at my mum like, I think I know you. You look sort of familiar. I was so confused, and you see what I mean? It's not a headache by any stretch. But over the years I've experienced so many people say, oh, it's just a headache, get over it. Just take some paracetamol. Paracetamol doesn't touch it. It doesn't even get rid of the pain, never mind the other symptoms. And I spent years dealing with it. The doctor, my mum finally took me to the doctor because she started to think it was migraine, and she took me to a doctor when I was probably about 13 years old, and he told her I was making it up to get out of school. Well, he really should have gone and talked to the deputy head, because I'd vomited all over the deputy head's office when I was sent out of class because I was ill. I went to the deputy head's classroom to knock on his door and left him a little gift, shall we say. So the doctor could quite happily have gone and talked to the deputy head, who would have told him I wasn't making anything up. And I was so ill, and I missed so much school. Between the migraine and the dyslexia, I don't know how I can string a sentence together, really, because my education suffered so badly. So yeah, she went to the doctor, and he told her there was no such thing, I was making it up, and so that was that. A few years later she took me to another doctor, and he confirmed it was migraine, actually, and I got medication, and from then on I've spent right up into my late 20s trying every different kind of medication the doctor could prescribe, and the symptoms progressively got worse. The vomiting, seriously, the agony of the pain. I remember sitting on my bed one time, smacking my head against a wall because it relieved some of the pain. I mean, it didn't just affect my life, it affected my mum's life, because you never knew when I was going to get one. So she was constantly getting phone calls from school and college, and then when mobiles finally came out, she was getting phone calls from me. Ma'am, I'm stuck at the college, I've got a migraine, can you please come and meet me? Because I couldn't be trusted to walk home, because I could have walked under a car, couldn't see a car coming. And then later on it affected my friends' lives, because we'd be out somewhere having a good time, enjoying a day out, and then suddenly I'd be like, I've got a migraine. So it was instantly they would have to bring me home, because I was going to be so sick. And there was nothing you could do. We all knew as soon as I got them flashing lights, I was going to be horrendously ill. And so they would have to bring me home. So it cut into their lives as well. It affected everyone around me, and this went on for years, and I tried so many different tablets. I tried beta blockers that made me look like a sumo wrestler. I tried other tablets that stopped me sleeping for 2 weeks. I had no sleep from the side effects of that. And none of them seemed to do any good with the migraine. And eventually I was referred, when I was in my late 20s, to a psychologist, really. Probably would help for other reasons. A neurologist at the hospital who got me onto, well, the drugs I'm taking now are, some of them are antidepressant, some of them are anti-seizure medication for epilepsy, and one of them is actually for migraine. That's the combination. I take 7 tablets a day. 6 antidepressants, 1 anti-seizure, and then another tablet that I take when I get a migraine to ease the symptoms. And finally, these things have helped. Now when I get a migraine, I get the pain. I get the agonising pain, and there's nothing I can do about that. I get that agonising pain, and I feel nauseous, really nauseous, but the vomiting has finally stopped. The confusion that stopped me from speaking a clear sentence and making sense is gone. I can remember words now. I'm not wiped out for 2 days, which is what happened. The migraine itself and the vomiting would last about 24 hours, and then the next day I would be exhausted, but that's not happened now. I've usually have the pain and the nausea for maybe 4 hours or so. I get the flashing lights at the beginning, and that usually lasts for an hour as well, but I can live with that. What I was suffering from was horrendous, and I couldn't. So to anybody out there who is suffering from migraine badly like I was, don't give up. Dog your doctor. Ask for referrals to neurologists. Do whatever it takes, but there is a way out eventually. You just have to really chase after it, because it's a difficult journey, but there is a relief for it. I can live with the headache and the nausea once in a while. I can live with the flashing lights for an hour through each migraine. It's much better than it was. And to anybody out there who doesn't suffer from migraine, who've ever said to anybody it's just a headache, it's not a headache. It feels like somebody's hammering a drill into your head. It's absolute agony. Would you sit with a headache and smack your head against a wall? I doubt you would. It's not a headache, it's pain. It's completely different. It's not muscle tension, it's blood vessels doing strange things inside your head, and it's agony. And then there's the vomiting, and then there's the nausea, then there's the confusion, then there's the wiped out with unbelievable symptoms for 24 hours. It's not a headache. So please have sensitivity, and do not say to people it is just a headache. Ending on the positive note, like I just said, there's a way out. You just have to chase after it, please. So I hope that's not been a rant. I hope that's been something that's cleared issues up to those who've ever been prejudiced against people with migraine, because like I said, I've suffered that for a lot of years. And to anybody who is suffering from migraine, like I've also said, don't give up, because it does get better. It can get better. You just have to, well, you have to work it yourself, because your doctor just does tend not to do that much himself, unfortunately, unless you happen to have a brilliant doctor. So, yes, I hope that's been good. I hope it has. I'm running out of time, I can see that, and I don't want to overrun and have to cut this video in 2. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to say thank you very much for checking in. She did stay. I recorded one video before this and she ran off, but she stayed this time. So thank you, Tasha. Thank you from the Beagle. Yes, again, thanks for checking in. Please comment, like, subscribe. I'm going to go before I run out of time. Take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.